Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to have you here tonight. I want to thank my team in the booth, and I want to thank our speakers tonight. Just avoid the step and repeat don't get hit by that. So I'm going to introduce my speakers. First, we have Amanda Pekoe, owner and founder of the Pekoe Group. Amanda founded the Pekoe Group in 2009 before the age of 30 and has since grown it into one of the top advertising agencies on Broadway and off. She's worked with clients including Six, Here Lies Love, Peter Pan Goes Wrong, Rock of Ages, SpongeBob on Broadway, Eclipse, Natasha Pierre, Avenue Q, et cetera, et cetera. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Cynthia J Tong, associate producer with Tom Curtahy Productions and co-founding member of the Industry Standard Group. Cynthia is an Asian American creative producer working on and off Broadway. Currently, she's the associate producer at Tom Curtahy Productions, where she's working on Grey House, New York, New York. She just finished up the piano lesson, and she was also on The Inheritance, which won the Tony for Best Play, and Little Shop running off Broadway, which won the Drama Desk. And she's a founding member of Industry Standard Group, a BIPOC-led organization innovating Broadway by creating new pathways to investment and producing. Welcome, Cynthia. And finally, Annie MacRae, Associate Artistic Director of Atlantic Theater Company, our neighbor just a few blocks to the south. Annie has been Atlantic Theater's Associate Artistic Director since 2014. She previously worked at Manhattan Theater Club's literary department as a literary intern, play development assistant, play development associate, and literary manager and Sloan project manager, and much more. So let's welcome Annie as well. And just for my own theater bona fides, I am a huge theater lover. My first job out of college was working at the theater department for the National Endowment for the Arts. I was on the board of an off-Broadway theater company. I worked with New York Musical Theater Festival, and fun fact is that my archive of over 1,000 playbills is in a permanent collection at my alma mater at American University. So if you ever want to peruse all the shows I've seen, go down to DC and check it out. And I'm sure many of the playbills of shows that they've worked on, their names are in those. And I'm really excited tonight because you're representing three different aspects of theater. We have advertising, we have producing, and we have artistic and literary. So let's first open up by talking about how you got started. You know, you fell in love with theater, hopefully at some point. And then where did it go from there? How did you get where you are? And let's start down at the end to Annie.
Sounds good. So I would say, like many of you, I would say I fell in love with theater like at a very, very young age, and did a lot of it in like middle school and high school. I was doing, don't worry, I'm not going to do step by step. You're like, we don't have that much time. We're going to start in 5th grade. Anyway, so I did a lot of like acting and behind the scenes work, stage management, in middle school and high school. And then in college, I was writing plays. And when I graduated, I was like, maybe I'll be a drama teacher, because I thought, like, who actually made me want to go into the theater? It was my high school drama teacher, like many of you potentially. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was like, I know I want to work in the theater, but it wasn't clear like what the paths were. So I ended up moving to New York and doing a bunch of literary department roles, and I didn't really know the difference between like what's the literary department and what's producing. So I just kind of like learned on my feet and had 3 different jobs in a 3-block radius. I worked like at Signature when it was in a different location, Signature Theater, MTC, and then Brett Adams, which is a literary agency, and then ended up staying at MTC for quite a long time and thought I would just be in literary management for the bulk of my career, and then actually was like, maybe I'll try producing. And so 9 years ago, shifted lanes into that. But I think I sort of like discovered as I went along, I would say, just kind of.
And Cynthia, you're in the world of producing.
Yes. So probably it's a little unusual actually for theater, but I never touched theater until I was an adult. I loved going to shows. I went to all the high school musicals. That was my way into theater. I had a Little Shop of Horrors CD that I listened to over and over again, but I never saw a production. And the whole time I was dancing when I was a kid. So back when dance didn't have words and it was like strictly a movement form. And so I studied ballet for 8 years and then went into competition dance, and we were bad, so it was fun. So there was no stakes. And then in college, I was running the dance groups on campus, and I don't think producers know they're producing when they first start. It's just sort of an instinct that if no one else does this, this thing won't happen. And that was really when I started producing, I guess. And after college, I was trying to find ways to marry my love of arts and my, I guess, budding business instincts. And I didn't know where that would take me. So I actually worked in advertising, pharmaceutical advertising on the media planning side for a while, and learned a lot there, but didn't love it. And when I was in New York City, I decided to start seeing as many shows as I could. I bought any $30 ticket and went to see everything. And at that moment, everything was amazing to me because it was just so wonderful being in the theater. And then we'd clap, and I'd say, that's it? So I realized I wanted to be a part of it and just started helping friends and trying to network and figure out what reading could I do for someone? How do I figure out, I didn't even know what a stage manager was. And from there, just kept going and found my way into Tom Carnegie Productions. And I've been able to grow there, and I've been very lucky.
Amanda? That is great. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I started out as an actor. I got a BFA in acting, and right before I graduated from undergrad, there was a bake sale, and I baked a bunch of cookies and raised money for the theater organization there, and at the same time, Alina Holy, who is the producing artistic director of New York International Fringe Festival, came and did a talk for us, and I realized that maybe I should be producing. So I produced a show at the New York International Fringe Festival, and while I was doing that, I saw a bunch of people running around looking very stressed and very busy, and it looked interesting to me. And so I started asking people what their jobs were, and they were a bunch of jobs I had never heard of because I was an actor. I was an acting student, and so I wound up getting some internships and then going back to school for arts management, and the kind of rest is history.
And so let's talk about your day-to-day for each of you, but we can start back with you, Amanda. So you're in advertising. You have some big shows currently on Broadway. You have 6 upcoming. You have Here Lies Love, Peter Pan Goes Wrong, which is, I don't want to say a sequel, but in the same realm of the play that goes wrong. Yeah.
Things go wrong.
The goes wrong plays. So talk to me about, you have your own company. What is your day-to-day? What are you doing?
So my role, I'm the founder of the Pekoe Group, and yes, it's an advertising agency. My role right now is really listening and kind of building campaigns. So listening to producers who have amazing instincts and have passion for projects and really want to bring them to life and bring them to New York, or bring them, to New York and then on tour. And so hearing what inspires producers about the work and what their goals are and what they want to achieve with the piece. Listening to my team, my employees, about what makes them excited about the shows and what they think will be really fun in order to put content out, put messaging out, put branding out into the world to inspire audiences to buy tickets and enjoy themselves in the theater. So really my job is to listen and help to, take all of the things I'm hearing from people and make them actually happen, inspire people on my team to create them and put them out into the world.
And what's the selection process in terms of which shows you're working on? Are the producers coming to you? Are you seeking them out? Are you able to be selective over the shows that you work on?
Such a great question. So my agency is boutique, which just means it's smaller than a large firm. So we are very fortunate that we're actually able to be very selective. Typically, it's relationship-based, I will say. When there's a producing team that we've built a relationship with over the years and there's a trust there, We like working with them. They like working with us. We like the kinds of shows they want to produce. They like the way we think about and begin advertising and marketing their shows. Then we continue that relationship. But really, we like shows that that inspire audiences to question things and inspire audiences to want to come back with other people, to bring other people there to have that experience with them. So that's really, and I will say that our selection process ultimately is every member of our staff needs to be excited about the show in order for us to represent the show. If there's I don't really know, that's not for me, then the spirit isn't really there. So it makes it harder to get everyone engaged and excited to market the show.
Got it. So Cynthia, as a producer, there's in some cases 2 different arms of producing. There's the money arm, and then there's the make it work arm, and then there's actually, I would say, 3 arms. There's creative producing, from the ground up, which shows we're going to take, whether it be this is a book that we want to turn into a show, or a play that could be a musical or a movie. And currently, like I said, you're working on Grey House, which is a new play that's premiering soon with Laurie Metcalf, and New York, New York, which is the newest Candor and Ebb musical, additional lyrics by Lin-Manuel Miranda. So talk to me about which arm of producing, or all of those arms, that you do and what you're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to do all 3.
Great.
Which means that my days are crazy, but that's what I really love about producing. I think it's incredibly exciting to be able to have a hand in supporting artists to make their vision possible, and that's really the shortest version of what producing is. In between that is figuring out all those pieces, and then we get to work with incredible people like Amanda or like Annie, and we get to partner and bring in more people to make those things happen. I would say, just to answer your question from before, on a day-to-day, I could be doing anything from attending marketing meetings to, I was just in tech rehearsal for New York, New York, and watching everything come together and being a support. Sometimes I'll do really anything if it means that I should get coffee for folks because no one else is there to do that, and I'm like the least important person in the room in that moment. I'm happy to do that. If it means that I'm sitting there with the creative team talking about notes on the show, those are amazing moments. I feel so privileged to be there. A lot of my time is also supporting Tom, my boss. He's really incredible on the financial part, so the money raising, and so it is a lot of talking to investors and co-producers and encouraging everyone and giving them the information they need to be able to either make an investment themselves or raise the money and support the show and be an ambassador for our show. I will say that I've gotten a chance to be really close to that now, and I'm very proud that I've been able to help raise the money and do a large part, like millions of dollars is really what we're talking about on Broadway. I did cry like 3 times in the process. It was not easy, and I knew I had an instinct for selling, and like I would sell yearbook ads when I was a kid for like $1,000. I don't know why anyone buys them for $1,000, but they did. And I thought, oh, this will be an extension of that, and it was. But it was so much harder than I thought, and it's all based on relationships. Like that's probably going to be the theme of this conversation: is that relationships are really important in this industry, and who you meet and how you treat people is really important.
So, of those things, what would you say is sort of your favorite part of the job?
I think getting to be in a room with the creative team is my very favorite part of the job, but I like all of it. And it's probably a personality sort of thing. I feel like a lot of producers who are lead producers who like to do all of these things, and I'm not a lead producer yet on Broadway, but I get to support someone in all those aspects. There's like a very fine line between I'm bored and there's not enough to do, and there's way too much to do, and we're always in search of that sweet spot, and it almost never happens. But when you have that moment, it's so thrilling and intoxicating, and that's how I guess get through my days. Yeah.
And Annie, your day-to-day.
So it's fun. Every day is totally different, and I think Cynthia hit the nail on the head in terms of like not having any ego of the scrappy jobs too, of just being like all of it's fun and all of it's part of it. Like today, I went to a theater to pick up free COVID tests, and like that was a part of my day, and that is a part of my responsibilities to the theater. And it's not all glamorous, but it all serves the theater, you know. So I would say I do a lot of sort of like the literary stuff and the creative producing. So I read lots of plays. I meet with lots of playwrights and directors on kind of like the literary side of it. And then with the creative producing, I'll go see readings. I'll be at the first rehearsal of our shows. I view it as like sort of a train on a train going to a station, that I'm like very involved in the productions until they go into first rehearsal. And then I kind of like, it goes over to the amazing system that is like, you know, general management, production management, and all those teams. And I come back kind of tech final dress. But I'm with artists a ton. I sort of feel like, and Cynthia and I had the great pleasure of working together on The Bedwetter last spring. I think our roles are probably similar because we both work for these like extraordinary leaders, Tom Curtihy and Neil Pepe, and kind of like are their wing ladies wandering around doing stuff, and it's different and it's exciting. But I think one part of it that's cool, because I've really like learned by Neil's example, is he just directed the show in Stage 2, which is our underground theater, and we all need to vacuum the theater before the first preview, and we literally, like, he and I both vacuum the theater, and there's no part of us that's like, we shouldn't be doing that, you know, like it's a small organization and it's like an ensemble company, and that's just absolutely like the style. So it's fun. I mean, obviously, like a note session with the writer and director after final dress rehearsal, or auditions. Like I've been in auditions the last couple of days. That's totally electrifying. But it also feels like I'm the person always who is bringing the readings and workshops bags. Like I have like a gazillion Fresh Direct bags at any given time, including tonight. And I'm just schlepping supplies to workshops. So it's all really fun, and every day is different. Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm a card-carrying member of Atlantic Theater Company and love their productions. Kimberly Akimbo, which is on Broadway now, started there, and it's absolutely terrific. I encourage you to see it. You know, building a season with Neil, the artistic director, what part do you play in that?
It's really exciting. I feel like when you work at a smaller organization, the goals are like very clear. You know, it's like we used to produce 6 plays a season. It's shrunk a little bit post-pandemic, but you basically have these, you know, puzzle pieces to fill. And I try to read like at least 3 plays a week, and I'm sort of falling in love with a stack of plays over the course of a couple months. And then we get to essentially now, like this moment in March where we're like, we should announce in May, so let's, you know, finalize. And I hand him, you know, like a good chunk of plays to read, and I recommend them. And they come in different avenues. Like I would say, you know, he gets plays directly sent to him. With musicals, you know, a commercial producer would come to send them to him. So we get them through agents and writers. A lot of times we have, you know, writers and directors are obviously like amazing recommenders of plays. They have great taste. So they come in different avenues, and then we sit in these meetings and we sort of like figure out the pieces of it. So I would say we do it hand in hand. I send him, I probably, you know, like most people in my position, I read more plays than he does. He gets like the final batch, but he gets quite a number of them. And then plays will also just go straight to him. So we do it together, and it's fun. This is the crunch time right now. This is like the...
I have sort of 2 questions that I'm combining into one, because I have pandemic questions and I have diversity questions. And I really don't want to sit here and do the downtrodden, what have we, you know, come out of the pandemic. We're still coming out of it. I'm sure ticket sales have taken a hit. I'm sure we're trying to figure out where the audiences are, and I'd love to have you speak to that. But one of the things that I think has come out of the pandemic, or at least was happening alongside of it, were diversity efforts to bring more diverse works, more diverse playwrights to these theaters, to Broadway, more diverse directors, more diverse casts. And this is not just racial diversity, but gender diversity, as well as even disability issues. And so we are seeing changes. And Cynthia, I wouldn't mind you talking about this because you're a part of these efforts. So can you talk about that a little bit more and how the pandemic has maybe changed these efforts?
Yeah, I think that during that time, everyone knows we had a lot of time to think. And I'm trying to keep this, I don't want to say anything that you guys all probably have experienced, because we kind of all experienced that moment together. It was a really wonderful time to get folks to listen when some people were not listening. And I think that I felt very lucky because two things, I'll speak from a personal experience, two things happened during the pandemic. One, I discovered who my allies are and who are people who really believe in championing these efforts, and was able to make relationships with those folks, and they are continuing to do the work, and that's really wonderful. And the other thing is, I'll talk a little bit about the industry standard group. I met 7 other BIPOC commercial producers of varying levels, including myself. And the funny thing is, have all been like chugging along, but we didn't know each other. I think I knew like 2 of them vaguely, and one of them, and he'll tell you this, but one of them, he said, Cynthia just emailed me one day and was like, oh, you're not white, can we talk? And so, and I did do that, but we didn't know each other. And so there was this realization that we had all been sort of in our own rooms, and what would it be like for us to all work together and meet each other? Being producers, we immediately decided we should probably do something. And what is our lane? Because there's so many incredible organizations now doing so many different things. And my philosophy is if you work really deeply on one small issue, and other people do the same thing, we'll all move forward, versus trying to tackle the entire system of racism or whatever is going on. And so we realized that we understood the financial aspect of this industry and where the gatekeeping was in that, and in producing and in investing. And so we embarked on what we didn't realize would be a 3-year journey, trying to figure out how we can break down that model and make it more accessible. And we spent 2 years working with SEC lawyers trying to figure out how does our financial system work in America? How does Broadway sit in there, and then how do we create an opportunity for anyone to be able to invest on Broadway, because that's not the case right now, and there are reasons for that, and there are good reasons for that, but our world is changing and capital moves in a different way now, and so very specifically, that's the area that we're tackling.
And Amanda, from your standpoint, one of your upcoming shows is Here Lies Love. If you don't know about this musical, it debuted about 10 years ago at the Public. It is a musical by David Byrne of the Talking Heads and Fatboy Slim, and directed by Alex Timbers.
Yeah.
And Annie B. Parson did the choreography, and it's about Imelda Marcos. So it is an all Asian cast, I believe,
Yes.
and then this is a pedigreed artistic team. So but it's a very different show. And not only the diversity, but it's different in terms of the theatricality of the show.
It's immersive.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's immersive.
Yeah.
They're taking out seats. It was basically, I was dancing next to David Byrne when I saw it, which was very exciting.
Yeah.
So how are you, and who are you advertising to? Who are you trying to hit with this?
That's actually a really good question. And I think it's not just a question about a show like Here Lies Love. It's a question about all shows. Where are we advertising to? Where are we marketing? And it really is important to be thinking about marketing shows that people will like to people. And so, what do people want? People want to go to a theater and feel amazing. People want to go to a theater and question everything that they think they know. People want to go to a theater and have something to talk about with their friends that night or, that weekend. And so, yes, with Here Lies Love, a large portion of the advertising and marketing budget will be towards an Asian audience, but we are doing that through digital platforms for all of the shows. Like 6 is about the 6 wives of Henry VIII, but our marketing and advertising strategies are incredibly diverse at where we put the advertising spend needs to reflect people. And so that's something that we do talk about a lot. It's not about, make a show, here's this show, and it's a white show and it's for white people. It's a black show, it's for black people. Theater is a place where people come together and have overwhelmingly emotional experiences, and it is our job as producers, as advertisers and marketers to connect a topic with people. And that really is the job. And that is also what theater is meant to do. Theater is meant to connect with individuals in a really profound way.
And are you using sort of coming out of the pandemic as part of the advertising at all? Is like, let's get back in a space together, let's share these moments together.
Yeah, and I also think, something else that came out of the shutdown, the pandemic, that was really incredible is that there was no live theater to see. So people were in their own homes, in their own bubbles, doing their own things. And so we had to quickly, say, okay, well, before the pandemic, all of the marketing and the social media content was all about the show. It was like push, push, push. Let's show, clips from the shows and interviews with the cast and creative teams, and it's all about the show. And during the pandemic, we didn't have shows performing. We didn't have access to people. So we actually had to get creative, and I think one of the best things that came out of the pandemic for marketers is that we learned the show never ends on social media. If people love the music of a show or love the topic of a show, that feeling and experience lives on in their minds, in their hearts, in their souls, in their energies, and on their social media platforms. So something we did a lot of, especially for Six, but other shows as well, is we turned the spotlight on social media from the show to the people, to the audience. Send us things in, we'll promote you, we'll share your content. And that really changed the way we came back from the pandemic. It's much more about engaging with audience members, even if they haven't seen the show yet. It's more about engaging with people and less about like just a pushy kind of marketing campaign.
And so, still on diversity a little bit, Atlantic does a really good job, has a very diverse season. Illyria is a South Asian play.
Yeah.
Illyria is South Asian, that's playing right now. Far Country, which was a terrific play, which was a few months ago, that was an Asian play. I feel like, Atlantic hits on a lot of different aspects of diversity. And so we were talking about planning your season. How do you factor the diversity of the season into your planning?
Yeah, I think we have continued one program that's been really successful for us, both because it's just been like great in community building, but also has yielded programming, which is Mix Fest. And that was created many years ago before I got to Atlantic, so like 15 years ago maybe, by Jaime Castaneda, who's an amazing director. And he ran it for 4 years, focusing on Latinx playwrights. And then we brought it back, I want to say about 6 years ago, and every single summer we focus on a different community, a different group of artists. And so we did Asian American Mix Fest, we've done Immigrant Mix Fest, African Caribbean Mix Fest, First Gen Mix Fest, and Middle Eastern Mix Fest. And out of each one of those Mix Fests, which it's like readings of full-length plays, and then we commission short plays, we either produce or commission somebody in each Mix Fest. So Lloyd Says play, The Far Country, was the commission out of the first Mix Fest back. Like it was, Jaime ran it for many years, and then when it came back, that was Asian American Mix Fest, and we commissioned that play. And then Sanaz Tusi's English, we had commissioned her for a short play. And so we've been introduced to just a number of extraordinary writers through Mix Fest, which has been super exciting. And then we just launched this other program, which we never really did a press release, but it exists in the world and is super exciting. And speaking of Illyria, came to us from Owoye Timpo, who's the amazing director who has directed Illyria's on now for one more week, next week, by Deepa Purohit, and it's a beautiful, beautiful play. And Owoye had directed Ngozi Anyanwu's The Homecoming Queen in 2018, and she'd come to us then and said, you know, like playwrights have a lot of opportunities because they still don't, you know, nobody has enough opportunities, but they have commissions and they have residencies and they have a lot of time and space to work. And directors often, again, this train, like directors I think are like producers. They have to hop on this train, get it to the station, and like it's so tight how everything has to happen. And Owoye said, you know, what if we gave directors a little bit more time to just think and dream? And she came up with something that she calls the committee, and it's a residency program for, we pick 5 directors that she selects, BIPOC directors, and they have 2 weeks to just dream with collaborators, and they get space and money and time, which is just like, she's such a visionary in that. We're hoping that like Mixed Fest, there will be a yield, because we want to have not these programs like exist over here and then the plays we produce are over there, that it's all a connection. So I don't think I essentially think Illyria is a perfect example. Like, I read Illyria, I thought it was an amazing play. It is also amazing that it's an all South Asian cast, of 9 actors, but it's an amazing play. So I think that's what we're basically like, we're drawn to the stories and, so it all is of a piece, I think, getting it from as many possible places.
That's great. I want to shift gears a second and ask, how many students are in the room? High school, college? Just raise your hand. Okay, so we got a good chunk, about half. And you teach. And so, does anyone else teach? Not yet? Not yet. Let's talk about students coming out of high school, college. What are the sort of entry-level roles in your organizations or in your companies, and what is the best route to get to those jobs? Great question. So anyone can jump in.
I can jump in. I would say this is my advice to you. Intern, because you don't know if you're going to like something until you try it for a few months. And before I started in marketing, I didn't even know what marketing was, and I had lots of different internships with different organizations, and I went in really excited, and then was like, you know what, I don't love this, and try something else. And then you're not stuck in something where you feel like, I have this job and I have these responsibilities and I need to keep it, I need to show up. So my recommendation from personal experiences, intern, and the best way to do that, there are internship listings on sites like playbill.com or broadwayworld.com, but I would just say email, go to the websites of organizations and companies that are interesting to you, email them, DM them via social media, because sometimes we actually keep a file of people who are interested in interning, and then we'll call them up instead of posting the internships online. So that does happen.
Yeah, I guess from a very practical note, I think sometimes folks look at job listings and they're like, wait, is this for me or is this not for me? And I think anything with the word assistant in there is usually probably a pretty good place to start, or associate. And if you really love an organization and you're like, this is right role is above me, I say still apply and see what happens. And this is gonna sound so weird, but I like interviews, and the reason is because I get to meet someone, and no matter what happens, hopefully that person I will learn something about them and about their job, and hopefully they'll remember me at some point, even if it doesn't work out. And I've had interviews where I didn't get the job, got rejected a lot, and later on, someone would come to me and say, oh, I like what you've been doing, and I remember your interview. Would you be interested in working on this XYZ thing? I think also, I agree with you, just reach out. Sometimes it feels like you should reach out to the person at the very top, but they're usually the busiest. Reach out to someone who's one level above, like someone who maybe has been there for 1 or 2 years, or even 4 or 5. ask them out for coffee. Ask them people love to talk about themselves. You guys got us here so we could talk about ourselves, I guess. And so ask them questions about their lives, why they're doing what they're doing, and see if that's something that you're interested in. It's not also the work we do, it's not just about the work that we're doing, it's about the lifestyle that you also have to take on, which means sacrifice sometimes. And I would just ask them, and oftentimes when folks are looking for an intern or an assistant, the person at the top might not know who are the people who should be getting that job. It's usually someone who's like, I have a friend, or I remember this person who's closer in age to me, and I'm probably gonna be the person working with them, not like I'm the one who's gonna be giving them things to do, they're gonna be supporting me. So I would actually ask someone who is closer in age to you and just make those connections. And those people eventually might become somewhat important too. So low stakes, go for the low stakes.
Yeah, I think that's right. So Atlantic used to have an internship program. I mean, this is funny. This is sort of like the different pieces of equity and finances meeting each other. So we used to have an unpaid internship program where we gave interns Metro cards, and we got rid of that program just because, as many organizations did, in terms of like the equity piece of that equation. So we don't have an internship program, but I think that lots of theaters, including Atlantic, has everybody's email up on the website. And I do think that because we generally, theater people got into the theater through mentorship and like, sort of just like, because we're all, it's all something that was like instilled in us at whatever age it was. And you're like, this is a hobby that can be a career. This is so cool. And so I think there's just this like energy in all of us that doesn't go away, that I definitely say yes to interview, to like, an informational meeting with anybody who emails me. For the most part, if I can get to the email in time, I don't have to know them. There's somebody on Zoom the other day who was like, I'm a student and I just want to meet up. I was like, especially with Zoom now, you're like, you have no excuse. Just sign on for 30 minutes and chat with somebody. So I think definitely, like, I don't think you will get radio silence at all by just reaching out and sort of starting in that process. And there are many paid internships that do exist. It's just smaller organizations have, paused for a period of time.
I'm just going to ask one more question, and it'll be quick. So if you want, there are microphones in both aisles. So if you have a question and you want to line up by the mics, following up on this, what qualities do you look for in a person who you might be hiring, whether it be for an internship, an assistantship, a fellowship, etc.? Throw out some words, some adjectives.
Eager and enthusiastic, willing to get their hands like if we're going to be cleaning the bathrooms, join us in cleaning those bathrooms.
Yeah. Someone who can vacuum.
Yeah.
Yes.
What else?
Outgoing, excited about getting involved.
Yeah, someone who's a good listener.
Yeah, like proactive, organized. Because I think what you said about producing, you're like, oh, it is actually that thing.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm going to just anticipate a problem. Really nice, like good energy, like good person to be around who's just a positive force, I think.
Yeah, willing to problem solve, willing to ask questions. Questions never make you look dumb. I think that's something I just want to put out there. I feel like there's often a retraining that has to happen when we bring in new folks. Sometimes folks are afraid to ask questions. I'd much rather you ask me before you go and do something, and maybe it's not the right thing to do. And I don't know, just be excited, I guess.
Be a kind person.
Be nice.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Yeah, being nice. And it is a really small community. I do think it's like, kindness is a big thing.
Yeah.
So we have a question right over there. Yeah?
Hi, I'm Aislinn. I just want to say I'm a huge admirer of each of y'all's work.
Thank you.
My question is, as a producer myself, I've kind of fallen into this, finding investors and forming those relationships. How do you start, essentially?
Yeah, there's no magic button. I really, really wish there was. It's all about just meeting people and putting yourself out there. I'm still working on that for sure. Tom has a good group of folks now that he's developed relationships with over like 20 years, and I'm newer to that. And I think it's about just knowing, like, for example, I have a project that I might be cultivating by myself too. So whenever I meet with people or I'm getting to know, like if I'm at an event, I would just talk about my project. And if there are people who are interested, I might follow up with them later. And it's not necessarily that they're interested in an investment, but that they're excited about the project. You also eventually probably just have to email a bunch of people and see who is interested and ask all the time. You never know who actually wants to invest. It's an opportunity for them. And sometimes people you think are a sure thing, or they have X amount of money and you think, well, this is nothing to them and it's a drop in the bucket. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna give you money. It's just about meeting people and putting yourself out there. I wish there was a better answer. There really isn't, unfortunately.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I'm a recent dual MBA grad from entertainment management. So I actually have a follow-up question, and this is about a fear of producing. So as a producer, do you feel a personal responsibility to investors if a show closes or doesn't make as much as projected?
Okay, I guess I'll answer that too. Yes, there is a personal responsibility. You are fiscally responsible for your show. It's a very, very tricky thing. I would say that people invest in theater, though, not just for a financial return. So it's about giving your investors and your co-producers a great experience no matter what. And I actually think that some of the shows that we didn't make money back on or didn't make fully back on, we actually had some of our strongest supporters from that, because we made sure that they had a really incredible experience, that they understood why they were supporting something, and making sure that you just don't drop off on those relationships. Communication is really important, and then managing expectations, because you will get folks who say, like, I've put in, $25,000, $50,000 into your show, I should get X, Y, and Z things. And the truth is, like, that is a significant amount of money for most of us, and it could be a significant amount of money for that person, but it is also a small percentage of that budget, and you have to think first about how you're gonna make this show successful so everyone else can make their money back. So it's managing all of that. And Tom luckily has a staff, so we also support him on that. But yeah, it can be very tricky, and I just would never tell someone, I would be very upfront in the beginning, and I am, maybe to a fault, tell people, like, you could lose all your money all the time, and I'm like, but here are the things that are really exciting about this, and they'll usually get on board because of your passion for the show, not necessarily because they're looking at the numbers and thinking, wow, I'm going to make a ton of money. Like, they'll put their money in something else that's safer. Yeah. Not that theater's not safe. It's a really wonderful opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, friends. Thank you so much for this tonight. It's been wonderful. My name's Edward Milchrist. I'm a producer, production manager, and I'm a writer for No Proscenium, which is an immersive theatre website. So I'd love to get your thoughts on where you see immersive theatre, experiential theatre, and how that's influencing Broadway. We've seen things like K-pop. We've seen things like Great Comet, doing things slightly differently. How are you seeing immersive theatre change the landscape? Is it changing the landscape, or how are you seeing that trend in audiences and in the shows that you're producing?
Yeah, I will say that immersive is definitely interesting and exciting to audiences. Here Lies Love is an immersive experience and is currently in the process of pulling out the seats in the orchestra at the Broadway theater and reimagining that orchestra as a place where people dance and move around and experience theater in a different way instead of a traditional theater space like this is. We're also working on an immersive experience about The Great Gatsby, which is from London. They're currently in construction too.
A great show.
It's fantastic. But yeah, I do think, I think 10 years ago when Here Lies Love was presented and produced at the Public Theater, and then went on to subsequent productions around the world, I do think that people didn't really know what immersive was. And then Sleep No More came in and kind of just really landed and said, this is so cool. And everyone was talking about it, and no one could get tickets, and no one really knew what it was, and everyone was wearing a mask, and it was weird and amazing. And now I think that people understand what immersive is, although immersive isn't like one size fits all. Immersive isn't just like Sleep No More. There are lots of different experiences. But I think people are excited to meet other people and be in the room with other people and not necessarily just sit in seats and have their own quiet journey and experience of a production. And we are seeing people being very excited, enthusiastic to get, in the room where it happens with other like-minded individuals.
Well, Annie, is the new Lucas Nath immersive in a way?
It's not, it is very intimate because we have 2 theaters and it's in our stage 2 theater that's 99 seats and it's one person. So you're immersed in his world, but it's not immersive. Illyria, actually, we changed this. I feel like it's so interesting. Like you can change the seating even a little bit and it totally changes the space because normally we're a proscenium, but now we have some seats kind of in a 3/4, which totally changes it and is beautiful. It's not the same thing, but it's just like even these subtle shifts changes the experience. Yeah.
Great. Next question.
Well, hello everyone. Oh, you want to go
No, it's all
first?
good.
Rock, paper, scissors.
You've been waiting longer.
Thank you so much. You look amazing. My name is Demetrius Carter. I go by Demi, like Demi Moore or Lovato. Remember that name is going to make you a lot of money one day. But my question is for the Pekoe group. So I know you stated that if this is not too invasive, but I know you said that you are a boutique right now, or do you plan in the future to become a larger agency? And if so, what are some of the goals you have for the group with the next 2 to 3 years? I'm in marketing right now. I work at Yelp I don't do anything with reviews. I'm just let you all know. But I am a sales director at Yelp. And I moved to New York about 6 or 7 months ago. I'm going to be a Broadway legend. I'm just letting you guys know now. Remember these dimples, I'm telling you. But no, I do want to know as far as plans on expanding and how.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think we'll get too large. I like that we're boutique. I like that we have a tight-knit group of people who all get to work on all of the shows instead of being segmented into different kind of teams and one team works on some shows and another team works on another show. I like that everyone's minds are involved and everyone's hands kind of, get into the marketing plans. And I also like that we can be selective in the amount of projects that we work on, because in a larger firm, there's a kind of feeling of having to work on anything that comes in. But with a smaller team and a smaller firm, we're able to really make the workload feasible and manageable, and we're able to not overpromise and underdeliver on our work. We're able to really say we don't want to take too many projects on because we want to do 1,000% on each of them instead of a little bit less than that on this one and that one. So I do think we'll stay smaller, but we're still rebuilding from the pandemic. So we'll probably be adding a few more roles in the next year or two to get back to where we were pre-COVID times.
No worries, I'll send my resume.
Yeah, please do. Please do. I'll be looking out for it.
Hi. Thank you all three for doing this. My name's Christian, recent graduate from Michigan. My question is also for the Pekoe group. So I liked what you were talking about earlier about this community building and engaging with fan bases around these shows. I think it makes it feel a lot more human and connects with the audiences. But one thing I'm wondering is kind of two sides to this, almost first, how do you strike that balance between, okay, we're going to put dollars towards these community building type things versus the in-your-face marketing that might be around New York? And second, how do you convey to a producer that it is worth, you might not be able to quantify what these fan submissions from 6 are doing for ticket sales or for the show, but it's worth investing and it's worth putting ad dollars towards?
Those are amazing questions. So I will answer the first one first. I'll attempt to answer the first one first. So, years ago, most of the advertising that that Broadway did was in like newspapers and on television, and a lot of that media now has splintered. So TV isn't just like watching CBS Sunday Morning. There's streaming, there's Netflix now you can advertise on. So, what we have to do is we have to embrace what is happening in our lives, and we're all aware that it's happening because we're consuming media differently and we're consuming marketing differently. There are some things we still have to do. So for a Broadway show that's taking place in Times Square, you still want to have a billboard in Times Square, because if people are, walking around, you want them to go, oh, what's that? Or I think I heard about that. Or yeah, someone said that was good, right? That's like what marketing is supposed to do. But most of our budget is actually going into digital right now. And with digital, there's lots of different technologies that we can use to reach a variety of audiences in a variety of ways. And the technologies do a lot of that for us. We say, we're interested in showing our ads to people who exhibit behaviors of buying tickets to shows, concerts, sporting events, movies, right? People who want to be entertained.
Right.
So it's kind of amazing that, back in the day we would, take an ad out in a newspaper and it would be like, okay, I did my job. Now we actually have to get creative and we have to say like, well, what do people who would like a Broadway show also do besides seeing a Broadway show? And that's part of our job. The other question about how do we quantify audience engagement. So there's something called KPIs. It's a marketing term. It's key performance indicators. And not every KPI is a return on investment. Not everything is financial.
Right.
So building a following on Instagram means later on we can actually find people on Instagram and Facebook who behave similarly to our followers on Instagram and Facebook. And we can show those other people ads because they're similar in behavior to our followers. But to build our following, that's more people talking about the show. And so even if they're not coming into New York City and seeing the show, but they're being like spotlighted and being promoted on Instagram or on TikTok, then they're promoting that they've just been shared on the platforms and their friends are seeing it and their family members are seeing it. And so the net kind of gets wider and wider and wider, and you don't have to pay for that. That's free. So it's free marketing, and it's community building, and everyone's community has a community. And so it's kind of like just make your footprint bigger and bigger and bigger and spread the love and spread the joy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mystery Skelton. I recently graduated with a BFA from Hofstra, and I'm currently working fundraising for Manhattan Theater Club. So I was curious, I know Manhattan Theater Club specifically likes to focus on new works and uplifting new artists. Please submit plays, new artists. We really want to support you. But I was wondering, because we do focus on new artists and we are focusing on diversity, however, Broadway has been largely marketed to older white audiences for so long. That's most of the people I talk to. So how do you make more diverse shows more palatable to older white audiences, and also encourage younger audiences to take leaps to see these shows in ways that support the theater in bigger ways than just like TDF and, more financial support that way, if that makes sense?
I can definitely speak to this, but
Go for it. You start.
Too much.
No, not at all. Go.
So I don't think I have the answer, but from where I sit, which is advertising and marketing, it's literally all about audiences. And so one of the things that we have begun doing, and it's new, is engaging with people that we would call influencers. They're not like millions and millions and millions of followers. Like they can be micro influencers and only have a few followers, but we invite them to the show and we also set up experiences for them with our partners. So maybe it's a restaurant that has, a dessert that's inspired by the show. And so we invite people to come to the show, go have dinner at this restaurant, have the dessert. Maybe afterwards we set them up with, like a hotel room at a partner that we're working with at a hotel. And so they start creating their own content of like what it looks like to have fun in New York City. And it just happens to include a show. But it's not about the show. It's about them showing the people who follow them how to have a great night out or how to have an amazing brunch at a spot and then see a show and then go to a movie that night or something like that. So that's sort of a way of beginning to have a conversation and a dialogue with younger audiences, meet them where they are. So that's one thing. I will say, the older white audience that buys tickets to Broadway shows, they're going to buy tickets to Broadway shows. So they're going to do that. They have that history and they have that culture already, and they've been doing that for 30 years, 50 years, however long Broadway's been around. They're going to buy shows, they're going to subscribe to organizations, but it's not really just about that. It's really about getting people interested in theater and getting people interested in the arts. And we lost 3 years of that because everything was shut down. So now, for 3 years, we didn't have younger people to bring in and get excited and engage with theater. Now we're really, having to kind of start where we didn't get a chance to continue that conversation.
Yeah, I feel so excited about the influencer night because it's a thing we do, and I'm like,
Awesome.
Oh, clearly we're doing it right if we're doing a Pekoe group thing. I think we have. So it's actually kind of amazing because on Illyria, the Stipa Purwitt play directed by Woye Timpo that I keep talking about, but they said this amazing thing on our first marketing call. Woye said, "I would like to throw down the challenge if we could try to have 50% audience of BIPOC audience members," which is an amazing thing to just put out in the universe. And so we have definitely tried very, very hard in many different ways to meet that goal. And one thing we have been doing for a bunch of our shows is we have this influencer night, and then we have a theme night. And so it's awesome, and it's early in previews, and we get 200 people around the exact same thing of like food and then social media and spreading the word. And we actually had a DJ last Friday night and then a talkback and all this stuff. And then with certain shows, both for the Far Country and Illyria, we've worked with a consultant that we bring in who helps spread the word to different communities and we've had a ton of student groups also for Illyria. And so I think we're just really learning about, different communities, different outreach, and trying our best to kind of reinvent the model because, it's a lot of things at once in terms of like ticket sales and audience and energizing, and also how Illyria is set up. You really are looking at the audience, and so you're very, it's been really kind of an amazing production in that way.
And Cynthia, you worked on Piano Lesson, which was the highest grossing August Wilson play ever on Broadway. So I'm sure, yes, it was terrific if you saw it. Can you talk about how they built the audience for that?
Yeah, I think. Oh, my mic off? Okay, great. I just will speak on an anecdotal level that when we walked into the theater, it was really incredible. It was honestly, there were a lot of nights where I felt like probably 40, 50% Black folks in the audience. I think August Wilson we were lucky with the revival and with someone as legendary as August Wilson that he has a built-in audience of people who have grown up with his work. And that's part of it too, I think, is giving folks access at different points in their lives to establishing a relationship with theater.
Bring in your microphone.
I need to speak. Hello. Okay. Oh, great. And I think,
you would know this term, you would all know this term, there's the theater avids, and I definitely don't want to exclude them either. I think that one of the best things about theater is we get to sit in a room together, turn to your neighbor. Sometimes you see people who look like you, sometimes you don't, and you have this experience together. And I'm gonna go a little different direction. I think with the way we consume content now digitally, we're probably more divided in terms of what we consume and who consumes what than ever. And we're facing a challenge that's probably not exclusive to theater, even though it feels like it because we see who's around us immediately. I wonder if in some ways we are able to create experiences in the theater that allow us to see each other differently, more than sometimes when I go on Netflix and there's an algorithm that tells me that this is the type of stuff I like. Like, here are some Asian stories, here are some Black stories, here is also the peppy female lead in a really fun romantic comedy sort of stories. And I wonder, and I feel like sometimes when I talk to my friends, I know exactly what they're probably consuming, and it actually leads to less diversity and less diversity in what we're consuming. And so it is a tricky challenge to face because we're not just facing it in what we do here, but in how people are consuming in general. And I'm very hopeful because I'm like the most optimistic, depressed person. Like, that's how I feel all the time. Like, I'm very hopeful that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, that with all of you guys who are going to work in this, who are working in this industry, who are going to work in this industry, and hopefully what we get to do too, that we will start to create more opportunities for community, not less, in trying to do what we do after the pandemic and not having been able to build that for 3 years.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi there. I'm Patrick. I'm a recent college grad, and I just was wondering, I'm a writer, performer, theater maker, and I was wondering if you had any advice for emerging theater artists, both trying to build their resume in a notable way, as well as if they have a play in a PDF, that's a great PDF, but making that like a stage production, like, it's had readings, but finding a venue or a performance space or somewhere to house it to get it breathing.
Sure.
You worked at the O'Neill, and I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that might be.
Yeah, I think that's such a good idea. Yeah. I would submit it. They say that all these things, I know that's like such an obvious thing to say. And you also, with most of these places, you have to submit multiple times. They say with something like Juilliard, which is like, so hard. I think people apply like 3 times to get into Juilliard, And so I would submit to, back in like the day, I think there are websites that just say, here are all the festivals, here are everything, and go far and wide, and not just, like residencies, all sorts of things. And I do think, one thing that I feel like was really important in sort of my path was mentorship, was sort of finding, like, I happen to have like really, really great bosses, and kind of just taking this like one person and being like, what did they do? And I would sort of maybe say, like, who's your favorite playwright who's emerged in the last like 5 years, something like that, and say, okay, let's just see what they did, and let me, kind of, and I think this is true for directors and actors, and sort of like, I think the same thing, you could possibly like, try to contact them and have a coffee with them and pick their brain. But I think it's this thing with a writer, in my opinion, it's like the door, you have to open the door, like it opens a little bit, then it opens a little bit more, then it opens a little bit more. And it's not like you open it and then it closes again. Like, it just keeps on opening in different increments. And I think working at that in terms of like getting, which I think is, in my opinion, easier as a writer than a director, because it exists as this PDF, as opposed to a director, you have to see their work. That's more challenging as a director and actor. But I would just send it far and wide, and also just think about sort of like, whose voice do you love and what did they do, and might you be able to knock on their door? Because people will want to help you, and and just send it out. Because the more people who are reading it, the more opportunity, things will come. Things will come, I think.
Yeah, I think in addition, I actually always tell writers you should submit, because you actually don't know who's reading, and literary managers are some of my favorite people. They really do read so much, and it might not be, they might read one thing and they don't think, wow, this person isn't a good writer. They think, wow, there are some really exciting things here. I'm curious what they're going to do next. And they keep an eye on people over a period of time.
also, if you know any directors you're very excited about or anyone else, like they could be your advocates too. Maybe someone wants to take this on who has a little more connected, has a little more experience, or a friend who's a producer just wants to help you put up a quick reading, and you can invite people to just have people experience it. My boyfriend hates reading plays. I mean, he works in an agency, so I don't know how he does this, but he doesn't really like to read them, but he'll go and sit through anything. And so sometimes it's just about inviting people to hear it, keeping in touch with folks. It's so painful, let me tell you. Like, it feels like in any part of trying to get into the industry, it just feels like it's never gonna happen, but it's really a series of like little drops in the bucket, and suddenly at some point something opens and you're like, how did I get here? And it's actually a series of things you did over time. I don't have anything else to say. It's hard.
Well, but one of the reasons I mentioned the O'Neill is because more than just theater companies that you see and are visible. I mean, the O'Neill produces work, but the O'Neill is in Connecticut, and it's a stomping ground and playwright development program and musical development program that. I used to be a reader for the O'Neill. I read for the Playwright Center, which is in Minneapolis. You may not have any idea of I want to go to Minneapolis, but they have a program that you can submit to, several programs, and they cultivate playwrights and have these fellowship programs where they provide stipends and they allow you to get your work on the stage. There are big programs like that, and there are smaller programs, and they're throughout the country. Does National New Play Network, is that like a good recommendation?
Yeah, can you submit to that?
I don't know, actually.
It definitely exists, like, because that's the Rolling World premieres and stuff, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that.
Yeah, I would look it up because I'm not quite sure how it works with submissions, but it's amazing. I mean, that is a really good resource.
And the Dramatist Guild has networking stuff. I, as a director myself, one of the first things I did when I came to New York was I went to a director playwright meetup, and I met a playwright, and we had a reading of his work, and I had subsequent readings of that work. So there's a lot of networking out there and a lot of opportunities. You just have to hunt around for them.
And I think Playwright Center is such a good point because spread the net wide to, there's tons of amazing theater in Chicago and DC and California, just spread it.
You don't even have to go there in some cases.
Do you have a recommendation?
No, I was just going to follow up question. For artists, directors, writers in New York, is it wiser to go look outside of New York first, or should we be looking in New York as emerging developing people?
Do both, right?
Yeah,
I would just do it both.
Yeah.
Do it all at the same time. Yeah.
Because there really aren't submission fees for many of these. It's not like film festivals where you're paying to submit to a festival. You're generally submit. These programs are usually free to submit to, and it's usually, I don't want to say a common application, but it's usually a letter of recommendation, your play, your resume. It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
You have another question right there?
Hi. Thank you. Hi, my name is Isaiah Brown. I'm a first-year grad acting student at Columbia University. My question is, what advice could you give, or do you want to give actors trying to learn about these positions, producing, creative team, artistic, like internships? Yes, no, like. Do people just look at the applications like, oh, actor, no, like, or what is it?
No, actually, most of the people who work at my agency started out as actors and dancers. Yeah, I would say that's like the entry level position is people who are interested in being a performer, and then they either continue on that path or they get into the administration or business side of things.
Yeah, I think one advice I would give to actors who are trying to break into the business side is don't send your acting resume and don't put not put anything else. It is hard for me to evaluate what actually you do besides, even if your acting resume is incredible. If you want to include your acting, put that at the bottom, but then whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's an internship or I helped a friend do this thing, just put experience that's relevant to the thing you're looking at. And that would help me understand. And it's also tells me that you're thinking through that, which is a part of applying to something and shows me how you think. And then the other thing is if you are an actor who just wants to dabble in some of these things and wants to pursue acting full time, but would like to be a little more informed in the industry, talks like this, Business of Broadway, it's I think businessofbroadway.com has these like 101 courses where you can go for 2 hours and just learn the 101 of producing, 101 of marketing, those kinds of things, so you're a little more informed as well. And yeah.
We have, Atlantic Theater also has an acting school, and so we have there's the staff of the theater, and there's also the Atlantic Acting School staff, which is comprised primarily of like alums and different staff members. And I have mentioned Illyria probably 6 times, my 7th and last time. One of the staff members, you guys all have to get to but is that one of the staff members at the Atlantic Acting School is in Illyria. So we actually have like an her day job is to work at the acting school, and she's on our stage right now. So I feel like as long as you're amazing and have all the adjectives that we've been talking about, proactive and organized, like, yeah, it'd be great to
Write a good letter. Why do you want to learn about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question, but no one's someone's going to run up.
I did not want to take time away from the students because I'm not a student. Thank you all. This has been a very interesting session. My name is Natasha, and I work for CUNY, the Lehman campus. And I've been brought on to support students in the program, to guide them through the internship and job opportunities. The students that we serve are majority BIPOC, majority women. So I just wanted to see if you'd be willing to share your email addresses so that I could reach out to you. Annie, I did notice that your email address is online, but Cynthia and Amanda, it would be great if you could talk more. And thank you, Adam, as well, for talking about BIPOC and the challenges of diversity. It felt in 2020 that everyone was talking about it, but now it feels a little like it's petering out. So it's important to keep raising it because it's not going to go away in a couple of years or even a decade. We'll have to keep talking about it over and over again. This is in order to address systemic racism. So I'll come to you in a minute after this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll conclude on what are you most excited about coming up in your job, whether it's a show or something that you're working on at the moment. What's next? What should we watch for? What are you excited about?
Well, there is a musical of The Notebook, which is based on
They're excited too.
based on the novel. There was also a film version, beautiful, beautiful musical that was presented and produced at Chicago Shakespeare Theater a few months ago with music by Ingrid Michaelson. And hopefully it will have a future life. I'm very excited about that project.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, you said Illyria 7 times, so, I will say New York, New York. We're working on it right now. We're in tech. It's genuinely such an exciting process. I got to sit next to John Kander, and he told me to protect his cannoli because he was walking away. And I put like a Post-it on there, and I was like, that was my job that day. I was like, this is the most important thing I need to do today.
And the most important cannoli.
Yeah, it is the most important cannoli. He did get it. He said it was delicious. But I'm really genuinely excited for the production. I think it's going to be a really wonderful night of theater. It's a beautiful cast. It's a giant team. So there's so many people I'm rooting for on this team, and they're all really nice. And it's so rare that you like every person. And I'm really lucky to work on it, and I hope you guys can enjoy that show.
Previews begin March 24th.
I know. Oh my God.
SeatGeek.com.
Yes, SeatGeek.com. I know it's a new platform. We're all working through it. It's
so good. I'm excited. We're in the throes of programming, and I feel like next season is shaping up nicely. And I'm excited. We're planning Mix Fest this summer. But I feel like what I'm very excited about is that I wrote down, I always keep these lists of plays I have to see and plays I have to read. And I got to a moment where I had so many plays I wanted to see that there weren't enough days before they all close at the end of March. And that actually hadn't happened in a period of time. And I was like, this feels really exciting. Like, I don't have to see that show. I want to see that show. There are tons of shows right now that I'm like very, very excited off Broadway and on Broadway, which feels really cool.
Including Illyria. I want to thank all three of you, Annie, Cynthia, Amanda. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you to Center for Communication and all their staff. Thank you to the SBA Theater crew. We hope you come back next week if you're interested in video games. Next week, video games here. If you're interested in that. If you're not interested, tell your friends who are. And we hope we'll see you back soon.